Hello and welcome back to Build a CubeSat. I'm Manuel and today we are going to talk about flight software options for my open source CubeSat. It's also my pleasure to welcome a new sponsor to the channel, so this video is brought to you by Brilliant. As you may know, I'm currently working on the next revisions of the PCBs for my development kit. Until I have more news to share on that front, I think it's a good time to look a bit into the future and think about what the software architecture for my CubeSat might look like. So far I have been avoiding this topic because honestly it's a bit overwhelming for me. I am not a seasoned software engineer by any means. I do know some Python, but it's not like I write code all day every day. At the same time, it dawned on me that flight software is a bit like an iceberg. It's very easy to underestimate and it can end up sinking a project if you're not mindful. So it's probably a good idea to start thinking about this early on. What I would like to do in this episode is get an overview of what my options are in this space. I suspect there are a lot of standards and conventions I'm not aware of simply because I don't have an aerospace background, but I would like to try and establish a rough taxonomy of options that are feasible for me. This video is certainly not meant to be exhaustive. It's very much the first pass and I know I'll have to do a lot more digging in the future. If you have worked on flight software yourself or you have thoughts on this in general, I would really love to hear from you, so please leave a comment. Let's start with the most fundamental question. What is the software actually going to run on? The concept for my CubeSat architecture is more like a network of nodes rather than a single monolithic flight computer. And I roughly split these into big nodes and small nodes. Big nodes are Linux-capable systems, single board computers, compute modules and the like. They're used for high-level work like payload handling, data storage, ground communications and running complex software stacks. I'd probably also put FPGAs into this category just due to their complexity and capability, but we're not going to talk about those today. Small nodes are microcontrollers. They're simpler, less power hungry, and they're used for timing, power control, sensor interfacing, and such. So their purpose is to handle narrowly defined tasks reliably. This episode mainly focuses on the small nodes, but the important point is that these two worlds don't get designed independently. I think a lot of problems can arise from underestimating the interfaces between them. Communications, roles, which node resets which, redundancy, and so on. This can get complex very quickly. But for today, we are mostly focusing on software that runs on microcontrollers. Of course, the choice of microcontrollers strongly influences which programming languages are available. Most microcontrollers ultimately run C or C++, but there are also options that support MicroPython or Rust. But more important than the language itself is the paradigm or the overall architecture, because that has huge influence on what the software stack ends up looking like. To get a lay of the land, I did what I always do, which is looking at how other open source CubeSat projects approach the problem. I'm going to put up the full comparison table here so you can pause the video, and I'll also link it in the show notes. At this point, it's probably worth mentioning that there are open source NASA software frameworks like F-Prime and CFS, as well as OpenSatKit, which is built on top of CFS. At first glance though, they seemed like a bit of overkill for my CubeSat. They certainly deserve a much closer look and a deeper dive, but for now I mainly wanted a broad overview of the landscape. And there are also commercial options like Rocket Lab's Max, but these are outside of the scope of this video as well because they're likely very expensive to license. What I'm really looking for at the core is a free and open source option that's reasonably approachable. I also asked how people approach flight software in the Discord, which by the way you should join if you haven't. And after all of that, I came away with the impression that I basically have two primary options. One, use a real-time operating system like FreeRTOS or Zephyr, or two, write my own state machine in the language of my choice. There are of course hybrid approaches and edge cases, but this framing captures most of what I'm seeing in practice. Let's talk about the second option first, rolling my own state machine. You'll also see this called a scheduler or super loop, and there are certainly differences and nuances that I'm glossing over here, but for the purpose of this video I'm grouping them under state machines. Since the language of my choice for now is Python, I'd probably end up building something similar to PyCubed, which is a CubeSat framework written in CircuitPython and specifically designed to be accessible and modifiable. If I go the Python route, that would definitely be my starting point. That said, my quick survey also showed that it's very common to use C on a CubeSat. While it's less approachable than Python, it's definitely more energy efficient, and power is something you always have to optimize for on a CubeSat. I've also seen Rust mentioned, mainly on Discord, as a more modern and very efficient option, and it's a language I've been curious about for a while. Realistically though, learning Rust well enough to write flight software with it would take me years. And honestly, the accessibility of Python matters a lot to me right now, especially because what I'm working on is still prototype hardware and I would like to foster a community where it's easy for people to share what they develop. So for community involvement, it's hard to beat a language that a lot of people already feel comfortable with. So if I'm not using a real-time OS and I do end up writing my own state machine, I'll probably stick with Python for the time being while learning Rust in parallel. And then once a project is a bit more mature, I could imagine switching parts or even all of the flight software over to Rust. And then there's also the option of executing Rust code inside of Python with PyO3, which might be an interesting way of gaining some experience. No matter which programming language you choose to learn, Brilliant can help you along on your coding journey. When I started this project, I realized pretty quickly that my programming foundations needed brushing up, especially when it came to translating real-world problems into structured goals that I could actually solve with code. That's why I have been using Brilliant for years. Their algorithmic thinking course really helped me learn how to break down problems step by step, and thinking in Python made it easier to turn that logic into working code. Their courses are fully interactive, created by experts, and suitable for both kids and adults. You learn by actively solving problems and not just watching videos, which just works much better for me. To learn for free on Brilliant for a full 30 days, go to brilliant.org/buildacubesat, or scan the QR code on screen, or click the link in the show notes. You will also get 20% off an annual premium subscription with unlimited access to everything on Brilliant. Let's now look at the pros and cons of using a real-time operating system instead of rolling your own state machine. In short, the main benefit of an RTOS is predictable timing behavior, especially once you have multiple things happening concurrently. If you write your own scheduler, you'll have to think through all the edge cases, like what happens if two things occur at the same time, which interrupt takes priority, how tasks interact, and so on. And that gets complicated very quickly. With an RTOS, a lot of that structure is already handled for you, at least at the scheduling and priority level. As system complexity grows, this can significantly reduce architectural risk. So an RTOS doesn't make your system faster, it makes it harder to accidentally break once things get complicated. And this real-time isn't the same real-time as in a UAV or rocket sense. You know, a CubeSat isn't actuating some control surface hundreds of times per second. Most things happen kind of slowly. What you're really looking for is reliability, as in the system shouldn't fall apart only because multiple subsystems are active at the same time. From what I can tell, FreeRTOS is probably the most commonly used RTOS in CubeSats. It's small, mature, very well understood, and has been around for a long time. It gives you a lightweight scheduler and basic multitasking primitives or building blocks, and then you build the rest of your architecture on top. Zephyr takes a different approach. It's closer to a full embedded operating system with drivers, a device model, networking stacks, a build system, and configuration tooling. FreeRTOS gives you a minimal proven core with maximum control, while Zephyr offers a larger, more integrated ecosystem out of the box. Zephyr might be attractive if you value more modern tooling, built-in drivers, better scalability, and long-term maintainability. So maybe this makes more sense if your CubeSat consists of more than just a handful of small nodes. The next big thing to consider is communications between the nodes, and ideally in a redundant way, and that's a whole topic in itself. Across the projects I've looked at, CAN seems to be a very common choice for internal communication, so I mean board-to-board communications, particularly because of its robustness and fault tolerance. On top of CAN, there are various higher level protocols. For example, there's libcsp, which implements a network-style model, and SpaceCAN, which is more of a lightweight solution that's also CCSDS compatible, but somewhat less dynamic than CSP. Also, CSP has a much larger community and some nice tooling like Space Inventor CSH and GomSpace's Gosh. I found a recent presentation about CSP by the open source satellite program, which I will link to here. So these are the two CubeSat-specific options I know of, but there are of course countless CAN-based protocols from the UAV and general embedded world like SciFile. And of course, many CubeSats also just use I2C and UART for their internal communication. And then there's also SpaceWire, which seems to be the standard for larger missions like the James Webb Space Telescope. That's probably a bit overkill for me, but if you're interested, I will link an explainer video by Rodan Schwartz here. Again, I'm not trying to claim that there is a single correct answer here, but for Build a CubeSat, I'm planning to give SpaceCAN a try. Not because it's universally better, but because it feels like a good fit for my current constraints and learning goals. It's compact enough to be approachable, and there are reference implementations in Python, MicroPython and Rust, which fits really well with what I want to do right now. There have already been some interesting discussions on the Discord about how SpaceScan could be extended and what other approaches might look like, so that's definitely an area I want to explore more in the future. And once internal communications is in place, the next step is talking to a ground station. Ideally, that should integrate cleanly with the rest of the system, but that's a whole other topic and definitely one for a future video. So to summarize, in the end, the best tool is the one you have. If you're comfortable with C, C++ or Rust and you have worked with real-time operating systems before, then FreeRTOS and Zephyr are probably solid choices. For me, since I'm looking for something more approachable right now, I'll stick with Python for the time being and take a closer look at how the PyCube software is structured. Longer term, I want to learn Rust and gain experience with the real-time OS, specifically Zephyr. As soon as there's any progress on this, I'll definitely follow up with another video. And again, I'd really love to hear your thoughts about the whole thing. So let me know in the comments what I have missed and what you think would be a sensible approach. In the next video, I'll hopefully have an update on the hardware development. Until then, thanks again to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and thank you very much for watching all the way through. Let me know if you liked this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.